And we're live.
Good evening. We'll convene the Board of Education open session at 7:02. And we would like to see, when looks like everybody's here. Anybody who's not here, say not here. And have Vice President Wong please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You all please rise.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening we had a closed session and we took no reportable action. Up next is the order of business. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting and the special meeting? We can take it as one action, please.
So moved.
Oh, can I ask a question?
You may.
I wanted to know, and let me please pull it up. I have it, I thought I had it pulled up. I wanted to know for the minutes for our session, our emergency session on the 14th. I wanted to know if before we approve those minutes, I wanted to ask a question about one of the items on there, and that was action item 2, board discussion on Assembly Bill 331. The Board of Education will discuss pending a letter of support that would add the completion of a course in ethnic studies. Is that something that we will continue to discuss in upcoming board meetings?
The answer is yes. It goes, the letter was sent.
Right.
It goes to the appropriations, I think, in 8 days. And so as soon as we find out what happened with appropriations, I think it'd be absolutely appropriate to bring it back so that the board knows what happened at
appropriations. Okay, so we can bring this item back.
Yes, we will.
All right, that was
we'll bring the topic back, but not the item.
We can bring the topic
Exactly.
back. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to ask that question. Forgive me for interrupting you.
Good question, Elaine. Good question.
So, Brian, you have a motion. Is there a second?
I will second.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion? Ms. Huff, let me please have a vote.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board President Hammond?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And so folks that are tuned in, if you see me turning my head, I have a much larger screen just to my right that in my advanced stage of my glasses, it makes it much easier to see. So I'm not ignoring the screen. I'm looking over to see it. It's a larger image. Up next, we have board reports and Ms. Travanti.
Yes, thank you, President Hammond. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Last week, we held a special board meeting to discuss the plan for how schools start August 19th. I want to thank those of you who reached out to me personally to express thank yous, messages of support for our decision, and for the thoughtful discussion leading up to the decision. It was not an easy decision. The vast majority of you agreed with our decision, while a few did not, and that is okay too. Everyone's perspective and opinion is important, but I do stand by our decision. In fact, 2 days later, Governor Newsom came to the same conclusion with starting schools in distance learning. Our ultimate goal, and everyone sitting behind this virtual dais, wants to see our students back in classrooms, and we will at such time it is safe to do so. We know the importance of getting back to routine in some sense of normalcy, and when time comes, we will be ready to pivot to that hybrid model. So thank you for everybody.
Thank you. One thing, as I like to let the public know, that the board has been extremely busy over the last week, not only answering emails from the folks in our community, but attending virtual meetings that have interest all over in the region. Today, I know board member Lockerbie was involved in the meeting with Dr. Ferrer, discussing the health issues as it pertains to LA County and schools. I know that Mr. Wong was involved in the same type of meeting. I know that Mr. Gilliland has been spending time in the last week attending different virtual meetings. So we're trying to get the best information we can as soon as we can to apply it to our situation as well. The reason I bring this up is I wanted to thank everybody, because when you came onto the board, you have an expectation of how much time that you were going to spend on it, because you do have family commitments and or work commitments to do. And you have been working really hard doing all these extra things that need to be done right now for our school district. And I wanted to thank you all publicly, because I do know how hard it is and how hard everybody is working. To add one thing to Mrs. Travanti, what she said, we are here and we're really trying to listen to everything that our parents are telling us so that we can incorporate this into our plan. Please, if you have a question, do not be shy. Send it to our emails. We're all there on the website, on the school's website at www.monroviaschools.net, and send us a question, a comment, a concern, a compliment, anything, because we are going to be making decisions in basically uncharted territory here very quickly. And we want to make sure everybody's voice and opinion has been considered. So please, 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 I beg of you to do that. Next up, we have a report from our superintendent, Dr. Tarosian.
Thank you, President Hammond, members of the board. As you just referenced, last Tuesday, on July 14th, the Board of Education decided that we would begin schools through distance learning on August 19th. With that, though, you identified several areas that were priorities for you, and I want to list those here because we have been trying very hard to meet those expectations, which are very different from the distance learning that was crisis learning back in the spring. And so by providing us with the time to focus on and narrow our focus to what's instructionally and socially and emotionally best for students, we're able to craft something that is more robust, more engaging, more rigorous. And so to repeat, those priorities are about daily live instruction so that students connect with one another and teacher, to ensure that there's accountability for our students with meaningful grades and attendance and a schedule every day, to ensure that there's high quality, rigorous instruction aligned to grade level standards, to ensure that we are providing support, academic and social emotional support, to provide additional support for language acquisition, including for our English learners and our rural immersion programs, identifying childcare options, and providing a continuity of services to students with special needs, including our foster youth in our homes. While we are working on each one of these, the one that is posing more difficult to pin down because of the vagueness of the guidance around it is that about childcare. And so today's report will not include any discussion about the different guidance that we've received about that, and that information will be forthcoming. On the next slide, we have Governor Newsom's priorities. So while this board made the difficult decision of beginning through distance learning on July 14th, on Tuesday, July 14th, on Friday, Governor Newsom identified those counties on the watch list with the increasing number of COVID-19 positive cases would not be allowed to open until Those numbers were decreasing and for 14 consecutive days. There's some other guidelines and requirements, but that is the crux of it. And in his speech, and these 4 priorities I've listed here are taken directly from there, I'd like to simply read some of his priorities, which I believe echo those that you entrusted us with on Tuesday. Ensure every student has access to computers and the internet. Daily live instruction and interaction with teachers and other students. Promoting student connectedness. Establishing a challenging environment where assignments are equivalent in terms of what you would otherwise get in an in-person classroom setting. And provide additional support for our students who are our most vulnerable. In the next slide, we identified several subcommittees that would be meeting in order to establish the schedules and identify some of those specifics. We had an elementary subcommittee, which met twice to discuss the daily schedule, discuss topics like what back to school night might look like, what the digital learning needs are of our students and our staff members, and talk about school connectedness in general. Our secondary subcommittee has met a couple of times because today they did meet, and they discussed a regular daily schedule, planning time, professional development, social emotional learning, interventions, and tutorials. So you'll see that the focus of each of these committees has been reflecting your priorities. And really, these came from the many teachers and parents and staff members and parents who are focused on what are we capable of doing and what is in the best interest of our students for their success. In the next slide, we identified some additional subcommittees. We have a dual immersion subcommittee. How can we help with the language acquisition? We understand that without using your new language, you will lose that language. And how can we set goals and identify best practices for instruction? For our professional development subcommittee, which met once as well, we talked about how we're going to provide the training and who would be best suited for creating it, and how would we find the time to build it in the schedule. And we had a COVID-19 task force meeting, which talked about the exposure management plan, protocols, and symptom questionnaire. What are our screening processes? So there's a great deal of work that has begun and will continue for the near future until we come to some sort of plan that we can present to the board as what we see and envision as a robust distance learning experience. Next slide, please, Ms. Hoskins. This slide was a bit alarming for us. We thought that we had met the internet needs of all of our students and were surprised to see about 45 of our families without internet. 39 of our families without internet. What we have since done is, because the survey was through Parent Square and we have everybody's name and information, we've begun calling every family to identify how best to move forward, because every family's situation is just a little bit different. And we want to make sure that before the first day of school, everybody is online and ready to access learning. Next slide, please, Ms. Hope. Governor Newsom, in his press conference on Friday, mentioned from the California Department of Public Health new guidance. When our subcommittees meet, they need to take these kinds of things into consideration, as well as the guidance that we receive from LA County Department of Public Health as we develop our guidelines. We received many questions on July 9th and 10th during the webinars of what will we do when somebody is exposed, when somebody is test positive, what's a cohort, when will schools close? We are going through the guidance, and the local guidance from LA County is the guidance that is clearest and most accessible for us. We also work with public health whenever there is a case, so that they walk through the specifics of it with us, help us with the contact tracing, with the informing of those who may or may not, who may have been exposed, and to identify what next steps need to be taken. So that information, once we review all of the guidance and the recommendations, we will compile and present as this will be our communication plan, so that everybody knows well in advance, this is what we'll communicate to whom and when. And that concludes the update for the work that we've done since last Tuesday regarding the development of our distance learning plans. Are there any questions?
Celine.
Ms. Huff, would you mind going back to the first of these slides? Thank you so much. That one would be perfect. I wanted to ask the board's opinion. These are our priorities as of right now, and I think we all understand that as this is a fluid situation and priorities can change. But these are our priorities for now. Do you think it would be appropriate to post our priorities on our website so that anyone who might not be watching this this board meeting can see what our priorities are?
I think we should.
Sure.
I think everybody, I mean, we have a lot of parental input as it is, and I think that the public as a whole should know where our focus is at this point in time.
So Dr. Therosian, can we ask that you post these on our MUSD website with the understanding that they could change? Is that a reasonable ask?
Of course it is.
Wonderful. I wanted to know if, can I keep on asking my questions all at once, Mr. President?
Yes.
I don't have that many. Ms. Huff, if you could go to, I think it's slide 8. No, that was that one. Digital learning needs. I guess you addressed that when you talked about the 1.5% of our population that still doesn't have Wi-Fi. I'm assuming that that means students, but I don't want to leave teachers out of that. Is all of that 1.5% our students, or does that include teachers? And have we considered teachers that don't have Wi-Fi?
The digital learning needs for encompasses a broad spectrum. So yes, the 1.5%, those 39 are families, are students. And the digital learning needs also includes the needs to be able to use the platforms that we have in place, whether it's Google Classroom or Parent Square. And it also includes the access for teachers, or excuse me, staff members and parents and students. Our staff, of course, has access to digital learning needs. When we were at home, we actually provided some of our staff members with devices to take home. And that would not change. However, of course, each one of our classrooms are equipped with not only Wi-Fi, but we, as the board well knows, you have approved the purchase of some additional devices, about 250 additional devices for our teachers so that they have continued access.
Okay, so we're looking at, with this slide and the subsequent slides, when we're looking at all of the digital learning needs, we are looking at teachers as well, because we need to make sure that they have that connectivity.
Right, and our schools are well equipped as well. But last year,
Can I ask one question while we're on that topic?
of course,
I didn't mean to interrupt, Kathy. Go ahead and finish your thought.
last year we did have some staff members who took devices and hotspots home.
And that was my next question, is if we authorized the purchase of hotspots last year, does it look like we have enough for all of our staff, and then for the students that will need it, or are we going to have to buy more hotspots?
If we need to purchase more hotspots, we will. We will provide our students first with the hotspots, because again, our classrooms are still available and could have been last year as well, available for our staff members to use for the wireless. But we will try and meet all of our student and staff needs.
So that 1%, I'm sorry, Maritza, so that 1%, that will be zero by the time school starts.
That is my objective.
I have one more question. Maritza, do you have a question about that?
No. So go ahead, Celine.
That's my last question. Thank you for your time. Ms. Huff, could you advance to the next screen, please? Thank you so much. I wanted to clarify, with this subcommittee, there has been a subcommittee of professional development that has so far met twice, composed of 2 parents, 4 teachers, 1 classified staff, and 6 admins that have discussed social emotional learning, anti-bias training, and trauma-informed instruction. They have already gone over those things.
They have identified what their next steps will be. We're not done, you know, but they've met to establish what it is they will be doing next and how they will be preparing the professional development in order to roll it out district-wide. Yes.
So these bullet points underneath that are the things that they have identified wanting to concentrate on at this time.
Yes, and you know, it not only came organically, because parents also talked about the need for the support for students and trauma, and it's something certainly that we have been discussing. The anti-bias training, of course, was in the resolution about anti-racist policies and practices. And so it folds right into that professional development. It has to be embedded in what we do as we move forward.
Thank you. Those are all of my questions.
Maritza.
All right, great. Thank you. Shoshana, if you could go back 1 slide, please. First of all, I want to say you moved very quickly on our action items and what we discussed in the last meeting. This has only been 8 days, and obviously a lot of work has been done in that time. So kudos to your staff, Kathy, and to yourself, of course, and to these task forces that continue to work in the subcommittees that have been created. I'm happy to see that there's parents included on all of our committees now, and that they're contributing to this. So thank you to the parents who are probably volunteering this time, you know, because they care about the outcomes. And so I'm grateful to you that all are volunteering to be on these subcommittees. I do want to know how you selected the parents to be on these committees. And also when we get to the next slide, the subcommittee on dual immersion, I'm going to assume that these are parents of dual immersion students and are involved in that process. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Certainly. We reached out to our parent partners, our PTA, to ask for representatives in each of these groups. Additionally, we are aware of certain parents who have some expertise in some different areas, and so we reached out directly to them as well. In terms of the dual immersion parents, they are parents of students who are in the dual immersion program and represent Plymouth, Monroe, and
Wild Rose, Plymouth.
I'm not sure if we have a parent from Wild Rose. I'd have to go back to my notes.
Okay.
But Clifton, I believe, and Monrovia High School. But again, I'd have to go back to my notes. I'm not quite sure about the specifics, but the outreach is there, and who might not have been able to make it to the first subcommittee meeting will likely try to make it to the next subcommittee meeting. It's been an accordion process of communication.
Okay, well, I'm really happy to hear that because they would add a unique perspective to that. Can we go to the next slide, please, Shoshana? Okay, social emotional learning. I know you're planning or have been having separate webinars or meetings with special ed education parents involved in that. It's not on the slide here, but can you speak a little bit to that and what's happening?
Oh my goodness, thank you, Board Clerk Travanti. I had meant to include that and I forgot. Our special education team has been working very hard. Their extended school year just ended, and they are already planning a webinar for parents on August 5th. They've asked for parents whose children are within their programs to complete a survey so that they make sure to answer questions and include those common questions within the hour or so that they plan for that webinar. And so that's on August 5th. Details will be forthcoming.
Okay, thank you
so much for filling that gap.
And that's all I had. Thank you.
Brian?
Could we go back to the priorities again, please? There we go. I think all of these priorities really kind of funnel down to one thing that the board wants, and that is an expectation that going forward, that all the classes are going to lead towards the end goal of moving forward in the classroom, academic rigor. I think everybody understands last semester was a crisis situation, but this is no longer, even though it is a crisis situation, that excuse is not good enough. Parents expect more, teachers expect more, everybody expects that we are going to be in a classroom, but just in a different learning environment, basically. So what I really want to hear is, because of the environment that we're in, we've talked about how some of the goals of our focus are going to be a little bit more on point. So how close are we by grade? You don't have to go by grade, but at all the different grade levels, have they identified what their learning objectives are going to be for the first semester and how they're going to go about doing it?
We have not gotten to that point yet, Board Vice President Wong. That is something that we will be doing with our school teams. And it's one of the basic tenets of a professional learning community is identifying what your priorities are, what your essential standards are, and what it is you're going to do to teach it, and make sure that you are teaching to that. And so that will be done when we have our teams back and start working towards that. They will all be at grade level standards, and we will need to meet our students where they are in order to bring them up to where they need to be. Just a reminder, while it looks like we have a lot of work going on, we do, but our teachers are also on summer break. Some of our administrators are trying to take some time off, but as we've all said, this is a summer like no other. And so we are working hard to develop these and allow for some school-based work as well.
I don't think anybody is questioning how hard staff as a whole is working to get this stuff fine-tuned so we're ready to roll. I just want to make sure that parents understand we're looking for rigor. We're looking for kids to be at grade level, just like we would any other year. It's just going to be different in the way that we're going to approach this. And I think, in previous years, normally you walk into any classroom and they have what the standards and goals are for every single class. I think obviously because of our shortened schedules, that we might condense some of those goals to make sure that we're hitting our priorities. But I do think it would be very helpful that once all the different sites can get together, that we make sure that we relay what those new priorities are, so families can stay focused on it and keep us honest to make sure that we're doing this. I'm going to assume that the state testing that we normally have are going to be suspended indefinitely until things get a lot better. And standardized tests are good to see not only where we are within our district, but where we stack up against the state. So we don't have those benchmarks. We won't have those benchmarks, I don't think, for the first semester or two. So I would like to make sure that we have something in place that we can make sure that no particular class is falling behind the curve. I mean, we have normal pacing guides for a regular school year, but I'm not sure what our pacing guides are going to look like with this new system in place. So if you can keep us up to date on what the new pacing guide is going to look like, or whether there's even a consensus agreement on what those pacing guides are going to look like per school or grade, I think that would be very helpful, just so we know everybody is on the same page.
Of course.
Thanks.
Can I get one clarification based on that last discussion? And if I didn't know what we've done in the past, I would be very concerned that we're redefining what our essential standards are for a class. But knowing what we've done in the past, aren't we building off what we did before, what we've always done? And that's identify those essential standards and make sure that we're teaching the essential standards from the state standards. And it isn't what we're doing here just a tweaking of that to make sure we can teach those essential standards by 100% online or distance learning. We're not starting from scratch, right?
We are not starting from nothing, Board Member Gilliland. No, of course, we are working with a solid foundation of content knowledge that our teachers already have and an understanding of the standards, and the collaboration that is critical to our professional learning communities will help better define what those expectations are in terms of essential standards in this new normal.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Board Member Wong had mentioned testing. I know that's down the road, and I imagine you probably don't have information about what end of the year testing is going to look like yet. Is that correct?
That is correct. I have not heard definitively.
So can you let us know when you know, so that we so that we know what testing is going to look like, and so that we can communicate with the parents about what those guidelines are when that comes up.
Of course.
Any other questions or comments?
You know, before we move on, I do want to thank both Drs. Kaiser and media. It came to our attention. We immediately reached out to our partners in the Monrovia Police Department, who are assisting and have already reached out to help us in the investigation. One of the things that, in reflecting, we've decided is we must do better in helping our students identify how to treat one another better. How can we partner together to make sure that every student's, every child's experience in our schools is one of courtesy, compassion, and respect, where it truly is a nurturing environment. And, you know, I know that folks may say, you know, this happens, they're kids. We can do better. Our kids can do better. And I know that if we set those high expectations and we lay them in advance, that will come. That concludes my report for President Hammond.
Thank you. We'll now move on to public comment. Ms. Huff, do we have any requests or any emails for public comment?
Yes, Board President Hammond, there are quite a few, so bear with me. First public comment comes from Jason Willoughby. I'm sorry, Maritza, if you don't mind muting.
Sorry.
Mr. Willoughby writes, I'm writing this today to share my ongoing concerns about equity during this educational crisis. When school resumes in a few weeks, our students are not only facing the summer slide, but the COVID slide as well. For this reason, it is essential that the district work strategically to ensure equity, access, and justice for our undeserved BIPOC students. While all students will need equity, access, and justice, additional resources need to be strategically implemented by the district, school site administration, and teachers to our BIPOC community. The formation of the proposed committee is a start. But if the purpose is to review policies, that does not mean future actions. The time is now to make proactive moves to fight injustice and racism, not to just be reactive in reviewing policy. Changing wording in past policies does not make an educational system anti-racist. Being proactive, making systemic innovations, and thinking to the future is what is needed. While the formation of this committee is important, the current board needs to make policy now. Injustice for our BIPOC students should not have to wait for a few more board meetings and committee reports. And
could I interrupt you for a moment to ask anyone on this, if you're not speaking, can you please mute?
Thank you, Mr. Willoughby.
Board President Hammond, the next comment comes from Amy Gould. Ms. Gould writes, I just wanted to say thank you to the board, task forces, superintendent, and special ed director for their hard work. I've been in frequent communication with many of them. They have been very responsive, listening, and trying to address my many concerns. Ms. Gould has one more comment. Give me 1 second. Her next comment is concerns about scheduling of distance classes. I don't think our internet Wi-Fi router will handle 4 Zooms/Google Meets at once. We had issues in spring, even when everyone wasn't meeting online at the same time. Just a thought, if there's going to be a constant online schedule. Not sure if it will be realistic or work for everyone. Thank you, Amy Gould.
Thank you, Ms. Gould.
Okay, 1 second. The next comment comes from Maria Aguilar. Ms. Aguilar writes, "Good afternoon, esteemed board members and superintendent. I'm the parent of 3 girls that attend Monroe Elementary School. In addition to being a parent in this community, I am also an educator working in higher education for the last 20 years. I've seen and personally experienced firsthand the inequities and injustices that plague our educational system. I am asking you to support immediate policies that will abolish that will abolish the injustices, lack of access, and equity issues in which our academic systems were created. We need to take this pandemic as an opportunity to challenge the status quo so that the children who have been the most disproportionately impacted by our systems have a real opportunity at success. You can do this by supporting the 5 action items that have already been recommended by other community members. Ultimately, our collective intent is to help our children become successful adults that will make decisions that will help us unravel the challenges of our times using compassion, wisdom, love, ancestral and intellectual knowledge in order to heal the wounds of racism and oppression that have deeply infected our entire society. Thank you for your time, Ms. Maria Beltran."
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar.
Okay, and the next comment, Board President Hammond, comes from Ms. Ruhia Yule. I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Ms. Yule. Ms. Yule writes, "Dear board members, I'm writing to urge the board to certify the proposal to form a policy review committee to review the policies, procedures, and practices of the district for possible barriers to equity within the district." That is on our board agenda, resolution number 2021-02. However, I am curious about several things that would like to raise them for your consideration and potential adjustment to the proposal as it currently stands. First, membership on the committee must be predicated upon some sort of expertise in the fields of education and equity, schools, race relations, and policy. Populating the committee with novices will not and cannot achieve the degree of critical, informed analysis that both the board and school community deserve. To that end, I have suggestions of Monrovians who have both knowledge and expertise and a deep understanding of the importance of this work. They are Jason Willoughby, Barbara Gollar, Tara Ellis, Amber Tellez Mitchell, William Kelly, Justin Yule, Melissa Taylor, Angela Blackshear, Lisa Labrie, Julie Gainberg, and Tracy Gollar. Second, the lack of accountability language and structure is disconcerting. I ask you to reconsider not only the duration of the appointment to the committee, but also current language around committee dismissal. A period of appointment, 18 months, and requirement for the board to disclose the details regarding dismissal publicly to be presented as an agenda item eligible for discussion and vote at a board meeting will allow for greater transparency and increased efficacy. In addition, the board must consider and make clear its commitment to follow the advice of this committee. Finally, this committee that aims to analyze district policy and procedures will not address issues of racial justice and equity as they impact the schools themselves. The formation of an additional roundtable to consider the 4 parts for racial justice and equity outlined in a recent email to the board members is a line of action I call on the board to take. Lifting as we clean, Ruhia Yule.
Thank you, Ms. Yule.
Board President Hammond, the next comment comes from Barbara Gollar. Ms. Gollar writes, "Dear Board of Education of the City of Monrovia, I am a community member. I care about the education of the children in our community, and I want to be involved in making sure they get what they need. I am writing to understand your plans for dismantling the continuing legacy of racial injustice in our schools. Every child deserves the chance to get a great education. A child's race, gender, socioeconomic status, or identity must no longer have a negative impact on educational outcomes. I would like to ask the board to implement. And there are 2 bullet points here. 1, implement a full restorative justice program at all MUSD schools. The second bullet point, increase trauma-informed, anti-racist informed mental and emotional health services for BIPOC students and students reporting identity-based discrimination. Given that the current bullying program does not raise the issue of race, religion, or status as points of bullying, use the standards of a full restorative justice program as a lens in which to understand and address bullying. I understand that these times offer particular challenges, and I appreciate your thoughtful consideration for the health and safety of our entire community as we go back to school this fall online. However, we need to make sure we go back in a way that does not unjustly impact communities of color. You must think about how, 1, climate community committee, 2, hiring and training practices, 3, reimagine discipline, 4, decolonize the curriculum, 5, COVID impacts BIPOC students of color and systematically create systems aimed at unapologetically ameliorating these racial discrepancies. This issue is important to me because it's generational for me and my family, and it is time to change. I don't want this to continue to happen to the children. As a community member, I know how important it is to be involved in helping students succeed. I'm a former teacher myself. I look forward to hearing from you about how you will address these issues. Sincerely, Barbara Gollar.
Thank you, Ms. Gollar.
For President Hammond, the next comment comes from Tyler Spicer. Mr. Spicer writes, hello, my name is Tyler Spicer. I'm a recent graduate of Monrovia High School. I wanted to take a moment to thank the school board for their hard work and dedication to the students of the Monrovia Unified School District. The school board members have showed up to multiple events to show their support and to stand in solidarity with the students. Some of the events that they showed up to are the following: 9/11 Memorial Event, Tuskegee Airmen Memorial Event, and most recently, the Let's Talk Black Lives Matter event that took place immediately after the high school graduation and would not have happened without the help of school board president Rob Hammond. In closing, I'd like to thank school board president Rob Hammond, clerk Maritza Travanti, as well as board members Celine Lockerbie and Brian Wong for their continued support and commitment to the students of the Monrovia Unified School District. I will always be grateful for their service on the school board, and I proudly stand with them and support their decisions and actions during this pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Tyler Spicer.
Thank you, Mr. Spicer.
For President Hammond, the next comment comes from Tamala Kelly. Ms. Kelly writes, I am writing to request that the MUSD School Board strongly consider adopting a climate community committee for MUSD. This committee would, point 1, gather accurate information regarding the school's climate. Point 2, set up an ad hoc committee with teachers, parents, and community members who are committed to anti-racist work, where students' experiences can be heard and to increase the presence of African American leadership on campus. Thank you for your consideration, Dr. Tamala Kelly.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
For President Hammond, the next comment comes from Lisa McDonald. Ms. McDonald writes, hello, I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to one of the hardest working groups of volunteers in the community, the Monrovia Unified School District Board. We are blessed to have such a dedicated group of individuals who voluntarily have given their time to come up with creative solutions, especially during these unprecedented times. It was unfortunate that many special events and activities were canceled to the health crisis. However, I appreciate all of the efforts and planning of the drive-through graduation for Monrovia High School seniors, and elementary fifth graders. As a parent of a fifth grader, it meant the world to my family and my daughter to be recognized for her academic achievement in elementary school. I realize that there are 3 seats up this year for the school board. However, I strongly feel that we really need to keep our seasoned school board members intact so that they can continue to provide experience, continuity, and stability at a time when so many other decisions about the school year are yet to be determined. Thank you again for all your hard work, dedication, and for doing your very best to honor the community needs and desires for our schools. Your countless hours of work have greatly benefited my children and the students of the entire Monrovia Unified School District. Sincerely, Lisa Reyes.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald.
The next comment comes from Cindy Montgomery. Ms. Montgomery writes, we are experiencing an unprecedented global event with life or death consequences hanging in the balance. We all have to make tough life-restricting decisions every day to reflect the changing conditions of COVID-19. We all want to go back to life pre-pandemic, especially sending our kids physically back to school. Oh boy, do I want that. Putting health and safety first for our students, our teachers and staff, and our community is paramount though. My daughter is starting high school at MHS this year, so I have a personal stake in this. With that in mind, I thank the Monrovia Unified School District School Board for keeping community health and welfare a priority by voting to begin the school year in distance learning mode. If we all pull together as a community, we can pivot to the hybrid structure proposed by the school board. We can do this. Thank you, Cindy Montgomery.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery.
I think now there are a few more. The next comment comes from Ryan Blackshear. Hello, MUSD board. As a former MUSD student and future MUSD parent, I urge the board to adopt policies that ensure educational equity. All students deserve a quality education. I also urge you to create a body tasked with holding the board accountable to achieving this ideal. Best, Ryan Blackshear.
Thank you, Mr. Blackshear.
The next comment comes from Gabriel Esparza. Dear MUSD board members, we wanted to take this opportunity to express our concerns regarding general injustice throughout our country and communities, specifically the equity issues for the BIPOC community and the educational system. Given the recent climate of social injustices, it is imperative that we come together as a community and take a strong stance on addressing any and all issues throughout MUSD's policies and practices. As parents of children within the district and a family of color, this issue is especially close to us. Monrovia's educational system and the children it serves should expect nothing less than a fair and equitable opportunity for all, and the district should provide a support system that promotes, encourages, teaches, and demonstrates a strong foundation for racial equality. As many of the community members have discussed, we ask that the board take action in implementing the following. Point 1, school climate survey for staff, students, and families to gather data on racial injustice within the district. Point 2, hiring a BIPOC in all parts of the district, actively recruit BIPOC educators, and train all existing and future district personnel on anti-racist practices and policies. Point 3, restorative justice to address a more comprehensive discipline and anti-bullying program to better school climate at all levels. Point 4, decolonize the curriculum by looking at current curriculum and addressing the racist issues, help teachers to effectively deal with racial issues in curriculum, and adopt curriculum that teaches anti-racism. Point 5, equity during COVID-19. Historically, BIPOC have been underserved and have not and have not had equal access to teaching and learning in times of crisis. The district needs to be proactive now to make sure all students, but particularly BIPOC students, have equity and access during distance learning. As members of the board, it is your responsibility to ensure MUSD provides an equitable and just education for the diverse community it serves. We would like to thank you in advance for listening to the community and being proactive on these issues, and we look forward to your immediate actions. Thank you, Gabriel Esparza and Crystal Franco.
Thank you, Ms. Franco and Mr. Esparza.
Board President Hammond, the next comment comes from Melissa Taylor. Ms. Taylor writes, "Good evening, board members. I'm writing in support with other community members to make Monrovia School District an anti-racist community where discrimination does not occur. One area that I would like to focus on is the hiring and training practices of teachers and administrators in MUSD, specifically training staff and teachers in culturally responsive pedagogy and competent teaching." You've been looking at the screen too long. This past winter, I had the opportunity to meet with a number of parents with children in MUSD. And the number one thing I heard from parents of BIPOC communities was that they felt their child was treated differently because of his or her background. One story that stands out was from a father of a Black son. Let me start over. One story that stands out was from a father of a Black son, and his son was consistently getting negative remarks from the teacher in kindergarten. When a parent-teacher conference was held, it was evident that the behavior was typical of a kindergartner, but his child was being singled out. Conditioning starts young. If a child is consistently criticized or labeled a problem child in kindergarten, that has the potential to follow throughout their childhood career. Appropriate training in this area can help teachers recognize bias they may have, correct the course for their career and their students. It is never too late to take the appropriate course and training of those leading the way is an essential part of ending I apologize. It is never too late to take the appropriate course and training of those leading the way is an essential part of ending systemic racism. Thank you, Melissa Taylor.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
And I believe this is the last comment. Board President Hammond, this one is pretty short, comes from Ms. Kim Patula. The subject line reads virtual block schedule, and her only sentence is this an option?
Thank you, Ms. Patula.
And that is all.
And there are no more?
There are no more.
Thank you, everybody who sent your letters in for oral communications. It's very much appreciated.
Can I say one thing, President Hammond?
Sure.
And stop me if I'm violating Brown Act. I don't think that I am, but many people in the comments use the acronym BIPOC, and no one expanded it. And I think we should expand that. So if there is anyone listening who doesn't understand what that means, can I expand that?
Please.
And I think I have known it as Black, Indigenous, people of color. So that's how I understand BIPOC. So I just, anyone know it as anything different? I just wanted to expand that for anyone who doesn't know that.
Thank you. We'll move on to the matter of the consent calendar. Consent items are a matter of routine business, and they have been placed and will be enacted upon in one vote. The board has looked through the agenda and all of it. Does anybody have any questions of the consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve consent.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Huff, will you please call the vote?
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Moving on to action items. First up for business is business services. Our CBO, Connie Wu, will be giving the staff report.
Good evening, President Hammond, Board of Education, Dr. Torosian, Kevin, and committee members. The Business Service Department requests the Board of Education to approve the Urban Green Infrastructure Project Agreement with Amigo de los Rios. Amigo de los Rios is a California non-profit organization. It applied for an urban green infrastructure project grant from Lower Los Angeles and San Gabriel River and the Mountain Conservancy. The grant was awarded, and the project will be located at Santa Fe Middle School and Primus Elementary School. The scope of the project, including grass cleaning, create an concave rain garden and biowheels, planting native and drought tolerant trees and bushes, remove hardscape. The project also involve educate our students and engage our local youth and their families in the design, installation, and the monitoring the project.
Ms. Wu, there is no rendering because they were just approved for the funding of it, correct? And
That's correct.
What we have in front of us, is to enter into an agreement for them to bring us a rendering. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. And with us today is Miss Claire Robinson, who is the managing director of the Amigo de los Rios, and he will join us and answer any question whatever board have.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did not catch the name.
Okay, the name is Claire Robinson. She is the managing director from the Amigo de los Rios, and she's here to help answer all the questions the board may have.
Thank you. So, Ms. Robinson, for clarification, please, that you have been awarded the grant, and now we're entering into a contract with you. There is no, we have no renderings yet because to date, there's been nothing. You were just applying for the money.
Correct.
Correct?
The money will allow us to do a survey, an engineering survey, and do the plans based on the concept.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
Entertain a
you.
motion.
I have a question.
Yes.
In this description, it mentions the removal of hardscapes. Can you explain briefly what that means?
Yes. For example, at the Plymouth Elementary School, the streets that lead up to the front of the school and then the parking lot to the east of the school experience flooding during extreme rain events, and the water sometimes puddles and stays as a nuisance in that area. So we would be able to strategically remove the areas where there are puddles, which are called hard asphalt or the concrete, and replace those with permeable concrete, which allows infiltration and will help with the nuisance drainage issues. And that's what's meant by removal of hardscapes.
I had a quick question. Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson, for coming in. Can you explain to the members of Monrovia how you picked us?
Oh, yes. We worked previously with multiple school districts a little further east. And the facilities director, the current facilities director, our facilities person at Monrovia, Mr. Martinez, asked us to come and look at the Monrovia High School, especially the front portion, to see if we could transform that into a more sustainable landscape with, low water use, but a lot of interest and connection culturally and historically. And he also told us that there were concerns about vector issues and drainage at Plymouth Elementary and at Santa Fe. So we met the principals of all the schools and toured them. And our work is part of the Emerald Necklace, a larger initiative. This is our 18th year of greening based on the 1930 Olmsted Bartholomew Plan that was outlined for the LA Basin, but never realized, to try to create green spaces at schools and a mountains to sea green infrastructure network. So that's how we came to meet you all.
Well, we're very thankful. Can you give an idea to the community how much this grant is for, approximately?
Yes, the grant is for approximately $609,000, and it will allow us to work together to make some strategic improvements at Plymouth Elementary and Santa Fe Middle School. And we've also written grants for Monrovia High School. We haven't yet been successful, but we are continuing to search for a grant for that school.
We have faith in you. We greatly appreciate what you've done, especially in these days of the financial crunch as a whole. Projects like this would be really difficult to do without support of groups like you. And Monrovia as a whole is, I think, would be considered a very green city. And this absolutely fits in our overall strategy as a whole. And, once again, I just want to make sure that you had an opportunity to tell people who you were, because this is such a great thing for us.
Thank you. That means so much. It really does. Thank you so much. And as you know, the mental health, academic performance, physical fitness benefits that will hopefully accrue once this very difficult time is navigated and students are back on campus. Hopefully this will bring joy and other benefits to them.
I agree.
Mr. Vonti.
Yes, along the lines of the timeline, I'm looking at the document regarding this grant, and it could take up to 2 years to complete these projects. In the interim, whenever this gets started, I'd like to make sure, Connie, this is really directed at you, that it's documented. If we don't have students yet on campus, and this is part of the education process that you talked about, that we're documenting this, that we're taking photographs and all of that so that it can be incorporated into the education with the students. And the other thing is, I believe there's an in-kind contribution by the school district. Can you talk to, let the public know what that is, please?
Yes, that's a question to me.
Either or.
Yes. Well, one comment about the schedule. Thank you for asking for that documentation. I think that we did this grant request in 2018, well before the pandemic, and I believe that there is room to return to the Conservancy if we want to change the schedule in any way that would make more sense. Given the school closures, maybe we work more faster and get things established so when the students are back, they're there, and find ways to integrate them into the learning. So I just wanted to mention that. And then the in-kind support, we have a network of Emerald Necklace stewards. That's about 6,500 students, college students, high school students. And we provide tools and support for their participation in greening events. All of this is being revisited with the protocols, required for COVID by COVID. So those things will have to evolve and follow the county protocol on safety measures.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. Is the scheduling far enough along to give us an idea when we might be able to look at schematics of what's going to be placed at these schools?
Right. Yes, thank you. If we are able to consummate this agreement, we can dispatch a survey engineer as soon as possible to do, an updated topographical survey of each of the schools, and we can get you a concept plan to review probably first week in September.
Great.
Any other questions?
I have another question. This is a large, wonderful, generous grant that we're getting. Does having been awarded this grant make it harder for us to receive other grants in the future? Because I would love to to work with you in other areas. Or is this it? Is this?
It's kind of the opposite, really. Like once we find a champion, a partner, as some of the school board members have mentioned, if we are able to align, we could continue to look for support. And once we prove that the implementation is really meaningful and successful, that opens the door for other opportunities. So it's, we've worked with some school districts over and over again, and we've completed up to 8 or 9 projects with them. Because we're really looking for the shared leadership of these. It's much different than a private sector, implementation. It's a process together.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Huff, can we have a vote?
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson, for being here to answer questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have technology, and Charles Pavakin is here to give the staff report.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
You hope the technology guy you can hear. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Good evening, President Hammond, board members, district staff, members of the community. The Board of Education is requested to approve a 1-year subscription for Zoom video conferencing software for the 2020-2021 school year. With student dismissal due to COVID-19, teachers and staff members utilize various video conferencing platforms such as Google Meet, GoToMeeting, and Zoom. GoTo provided free access for COVID-19, and Zoom also allowed some basic function access to their platform because of COVID-19. One of the things I liked about the GoTo platform was that it was the same company as our telephone company, and things integrated pretty nicely. The district was leaning towards GoToMeeting. It was to my understanding that it would remain free to the district as we're currently using their telephone services. However, about 2 months ago, the company launched a different platform called GoTo Connect, and it's the GoTo Connect platform that's going to remain free with our telephone services. And GoTo Connect is very basic in terms of video conferencing at best. At the same time, I started to hear various feedback from instructional coaches, Dr. Catherine Rial, special ed department, that more folks were gravitating towards Zoom in terms of functionality, ease of use. Additionally, the waiting room works a little bit differently with Zoom. It's much more streamlined and kid-friendly, and as well as the waiting room feature, whereas it allows you to selectively allow who comes in and who stays in the waiting room. I did reach out to both the GoTo company and Zoom And to go with the go-to full platform, not the basic platform that they're going to be giving us, but their full platform that's somewhat usable for teachers, they're planning to charge $60 per user per year. Zoom came back and they're pricing it at $36 per user per year. So that's why I'm bringing this to the board to approve 500 license of Zoom in an amount of $18,000 for a year. And this will be paid out of LCAP funding.
Can you define can you define what a user is? I mean, for 500 licenses, are you talking about how many people could be on at one time? Clearly, we have more than 500 students. So what exactly is that going to cover if every student was online during the day?
So users, they go by basically teacher and staff accounts. Those that can basically run a Zoom meeting, can run reports, can host the Zoom meetings. That's what a user is. We actually felt like we needed less, but with Zoom, they basically had step pricing. Under 500, it was actually $50 per user. So basically, once you go over 360 users with Zoom, you might as well just get 500 license because of their stepped pricing. So that's why we're going with 500 licenses at $36 versus less than 500 licenses at $50 each. That's why.
Okay.
Charles, I just want to make sure I understand that $36 for the 500 licenses is for the full Zoom program, not the other one that you were talking about. It's for the full one.
Yes,
You kind of went through it fast. So
yeah, so Zoom has many products. It's for basically their main platform, which is Zoom meetings. And Zoom is throwing in one webinar platform. And the webinar is based on the attendees. So basically, we can run a Zoom webinar as well, up to 1,000 attendees. But as far as what the 500 licensing is for their main software suite, which is Zoom meetings with breakout features, with waiting room.
That's what I was going to ask, if you had the breakout room capability. Now, early in the whole pandemic and distance learning, there were a lot of issues with Zoom, with safety issues. People crashing in on Zoom meetings that weren't authorized really to be there. I believe Zoom has put in a lot more safeguards in place, but can you speak to that?
Yes, so Zoom has put a lot more safeguard in places. A lot of it has to do with users as well. Basically, Zoom has the ability to password protect your meetings. Because what folks were trying to do, think of it as a combination lock. Let's pretend a bike lock that has 4 digits. If you try each and every one of those digits, there's only 1,000 combinations. Eventually, you're going to open the lock. So there were only so many numbers in a Zoom meeting ID. So that's what the hackers basically did. They just kept on trying until they get into a meeting. Now, if you were to password protect it, they may have the combo, but behind it is a password. So now you have to get through 2 combinations, which makes it much more harder to get in. So a lot of it had to do with users as well. Zoom is also changing things as well. All our video conferencing, if it originates in the US, they're in servers in the US, not overseas. So that's a change that they've done as well. And one of the things that I've included in this agenda item, you will see that I'm having them sign, and they have already signed. So it's just a matter of us signing and returning it. California Student Data Privacy Agreement as well. So I've included that in there as well, mainly because of that, to make sure that they're signing an agreement on how they will be treating our data, securing our data. And in that agreement as well, should there be any breach, they have to notify us within 48 hours, for example.
So the privacy agreement you're referring to, you sent us one for Pleasanton Unified School District. Now, I'm assuming that's just a boilerplate?
That's actually not. So this agreement was done by a consortium of school districts, and it's being led by CITE, C-I-T-E, California IT and Education. And the way that they make this agreement is that you can piggyback off of it. So once they've signed the agreement, with a school district, we can piggyback off of it. So Pleasanton was one of the first school districts to sign this agreement with Zoom. So what we will be signing is in Exhibit E. In Exhibit E, what it says is that it is piggybacking. We are piggybacking, and that Zoom will be providing us the same protections and agreement as they are with Pleasanton. That's how that works.
Okay, seems kind of, why don't we just put our own agreement together? It's a whopping 10 pages or so, but whatever, as long as it's there. As far as the price goes, which is about $18,000, give or take, is that a lump sum annual contract? Is this for 1 year only? What are the terms of how do we get out if we so desire? So, for example, if we go back to school in December, or whenever we're able to, the need for this many contracts, 500 contracts, is probably not going to be required. Hopefully it won't be required at some point. What's our exit strategy?
Oh, I didn't enter this with the intentions of exiting, quite honestly, because I think the break even was about 6, 7, or 8 months around there. Once you get to the 6-month mark, you might as well just go a year. Once you go with the annual agreement for 500 licenses, and this is also educational priced as well.
So it's not a lump sum.
No, it is a lump sum. 18,000. We'll release the PO, pay 18,000, and we'll have a 1-year license.
Okay, so what's the 6 months break even that you're referring to?
If we were to go month to month, we'd be paying a higher price, and basically around the 6-7 month mark is when you break even. So once you go past, if we were paying month to month, once you go past around 6-7 months, you'll be paying more than $18,000. Basically.
So if we went back to school in 4 months, which isn't likely, but if we did, then we wouldn't be breaking even.
That's true. We wouldn't be breaking even. So that's one of those things where, for seeing how things are, I do not envision, even when folks go back to school, I still envision people still using video conferencing.
Okay, so the break even is March, basically, is what you're saying, give or take.
Yeah, 9 plus 6, it's 15. Yeah, about February, March. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but this is for 12 months and 12 months only.
Correct.
Charles, since we're going to have extra licenses potentially, is there room for some of our key stakeholders to hold a license, like PTA presidents for the school sites? Has anybody considered that?
I would have to look into that, and we may have to provide an update in a board update, because it is an educational license tied to our at monroviaschools.net. So you would need to have an at monroviaschools.net email address, which parents do not. Yeah.
Okay.
Charles, did you mention in the different platforms that you looked at, Google Meet?
Correct. Google Meet.
You did look at Google Meet?
Yeah, so a lot of teachers started out with Google Meet, and Google Meet is fairly limited. Google Meet does not have breakout rooms. The way that the waiting rooms, I don't think there is waiting rooms actually in Google Meet. So there is very much less controls for teachers with Google Meet.
And you had mentioned that, I think you said Dr. Rial had let you know that more people were gravitating towards Zoom. How have you polled our educators that will be using this platform? How have you really found out what the temperature is for this platform? Or are you just going based on your knowledge of the functionality and the cost?
A combination of that. So knowledge of the functionality, the cost, and really working hand in hand with our instructional coaches, particularly the ones in technology. And I did take a deep dive with Catherine's feedback, primarily the breakout rooms, because the go-to platform, their breakout rooms, I heard was pretty bad. So I actually did go through it, created a bunch of dummy accounts and tried it out. And clearly we can see that it was geared more towards like a college type class. It was very institutionalized looking, very clunky. And it just wasn't streamlined for kids. So, I mean, it was just without a doubt, Zoom is a much better platform from a user standpoint, versus the GoTo platform and Google Meet.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm on a hotspot. That's why I'm outside. So I'm just going to go inside the garage where there's light and hopefully I still have good reception.
Oh, now we can see you.
I was hearing crickets too.
And we don't hear the crickets anymore.
Any other questions?
Can we hear it? Well, we did it all so well in the dark. Now you got in the light. I'm sorry. It's like the sound was coming. I'm using my telephone for sound and it was coming in and out. So I had to switch it to a different phone. Does anybody else have any more questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
I want to make sure that our teachers are fully trained on how to use Zoom. I've used Zoom. It's pretty organic. It's pretty simple, but I've also used Zoom before for a different meeting and my camera was upside down and I didn't know how to turn it right side up, or I didn't know how to initiate a breakout room or something like that. So, of course, we want to make sure that everyone is fully trained in how to use this. It's not a very difficult program, but we just want to be reassured that there's going to be extensive training for anyone who needs it.
I got it, yes. And they have very good training tutorials, actually. It's actually very simplified as well. So we'll work on that.
Charles, I want to go just back and Maritza asked the question that I had because it's the one that made Zoom famous. They have solved the issue of people hacking into their meetings.
Yes, I'm not sure for those that use Zoom. At one point, I believe in May, they said that they're going to release a major update. And if you didn't update it to the latest Zoom, your Zoom wouldn't work. So in May, everybody had to update their Zoom. And part of it was to address that. And they are encoding their traffic. And then they also are making so that things that are hosted in the US, like our board meetings, for example, will be residing on US servers, not overseas servers.
Okay.
One quick question, Charles. As far as the licensing goes, basically it's anybody who has an email that has a Monrovia schools.net, correct? So teachers' aides or any staff member who is assisting teachers could use this to set up meetings if they need be. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. I also got a text from somebody saying that Zoom is the preferred way of going. So just another voice.
I got 3 of those while I was switching from one phone to the other. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Can you please have a vote?
Board Member Wong. Ryan.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My thing cuts out every once in a while. I need Zoom.
Board Member Gilliland.
Ed,
Ed?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
You know, what a time to have a little mix-up when the technology guy is getting a vote.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Is that a yes? Wow.
Yes, it's a yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Up next is Dr. Tarosian, a resolution for authorizing the formation of a policy review committee.
Thank you, President Hammond, members of the board. The Board of Education is requested to approve resolution number 2021-02, authorizing the formation of a policy review committee to review district policies and procedures that may be a potential barrier to equity. This policy review committee would be established in the same manner as our facilities master plan committee, with each board member identifying one person to serve as a member of the committee, where they would develop a schedule and work with staff to identify needs and provide them with any information that they need.
Thank you. This is something that the board, when we started with our resolution, we were adamant that we were not creating a paper tiger, that we were really going to take steps wherever we could to start making sure there were no inequities in the Monrovia Unified School System. This is just a step. And there will be more and more in the future. But that's how we got here. This is why. I'm going to go back and do a meeting with Ms. Lockerbie when she spoke up and said that she wanted to have some specifics. And I think it was the right thing to ask for, because I think people, while you generally know what you want to do and see, you may not be able to articulate what the specifics may be. It may be uncomfortable to even speak about the specifics, but we have to talk about the things that are uncomfortable. And it's our duty. It's the job that we were given when people elected us to represent them. I'd like to thank Ms. Lockerbie for having that difficult conversation. This is just one more step into making sure we daylight everything that we do, so that the people who entrust us with their children know that their children are getting the very best that we can get. So I'll entertain a motion, please.
Can I ask a
Are we
question?
going to have any discussion first?
We certainly may.
Good. This community's worked very hard on race relationships and anti-bias stuff for many years. And there's some groups that I want to recognize as being partners with us in our quest for eliminating racial bias. One of those is Change Makers. If anybody hasn't seen their book they put out on the people in Monrovia that have made a difference in relationships in this community, you need to get that book. I can give you a copy online if you want to. Just ask me. I'll send you a link to the online copy. Our partnership with Monrovia Duarte Black Alumni Association has produced some excellent programs for each one of our schools. And I really think that this resolution needs to be changed to say, let us have representatives that come from these organizations that have been our partners, and these folks that have such a
Hang on, Ed. Ed, we're losing you.
He doesn't hear us.
Ed, hold the thought.
that's for them.
Charles,
I think for the school board and our partners that we need to expand that.
Ed, you have to back up just a little bit to the point where you said you think it should include our partners and then come forward to the sound left us.
Okay, I know I'm on an internet that's not the greatest. I think we need to have, well, let me just put out there. I think we need to ask change makers to provide a representative. Representative. I think we need to ask the Black Alumni Association to provide I think we need to have community provide a member. I also think our bargaining units need to provide a member. So instead of proposing that we have one member appointed by each board member, I think we need to say what groups we want representative and what level of expertise they might have. Ms. Ewell made a very good point in her letter that we need people on here that understand what the issues are and understand the education system well enough to give us good recommendations.
I'd like to add to what you're saying, Mr. Gilliland. As our community was discussing this earlier, I was thinking about the Black student union at the high school. Yes. And I know they're not educators, but they're children, and I mean there are students that are or are not feeling the effects of these things that we're talking about, and I think that they should have an opportunity to be represented.
Good point.
So
I'm writing what you said, Ed, because I need to be able to see it.
So Ed, you propose
good. If you get it all written down, you can make the motion.
More than just one person per board member. Is that, Mr. Gilliland, is that your suggestion?
When I think about the membership, I'm thinking maybe a 10-person committee with representatives that come from our cooperators, not from board members.
So you're saying that the board puts on a member and then we draw from these different partners.
Exactly. Exactly, Rob.
Okay. So what I'm writing here is that each board member would put a person from the community. That it would also be in addition to a person from Changemakers, a person from the Monrovia Duarte Black Alumni Association, and you had and on the student side from the Black Student Union. And there was
let's also include the Hispanic.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Right. Okay, I'm writing them. Hang on. And then, see, who else do we include?
Do we include LGBTQ community?
Sure. Is there a formal group in our community that we can ask? I certainly know people who may want to be on it, but I don't know of a formal committee or a formal group. Is anybody aware?
I think that instead of us trying to pick who they're going to be, why don't we take a little bit of time and look at all of our partner organizations who might want to participate in this. I don't want to exclude anybody who wants to be a part of this that we've already been working with, just because we're just kind of blanking on names at this point in time, trying to think of things really fast. I think everybody's heart and minds are in the same spot, and I don't want to exclude anybody by mistake, is my concern.
Well, we can pretty much we can form this as we want, Brian. This is my suggestion, is we go with the names of the organizations that we know. We allow the board members to go out and get a community member. And then we allow for expansion of the committee so that we can add them. But we take steps to start today so that they're not going to start working tomorrow, but it will be soon, and it'll be within probably the next time we have a board meeting that we'll be able to look at these things to see if there is a formal group that we need to add. Because I agree with you, this is not about excluding anybody. And the more chefs in this kitchen, the better off the soup's going to be.
Mm-hmm. And I think we have a wonderful opportunity here for the district to move forward on this. For all our work, we've got things to do, and this committee is going to be a great asset. And I see it ongoing because we get policy updates all the time, and we will continue to get policy updates. And as we do that, we need people to look at that from this standpoint and make sure we don't pass new policies or updated policies that go the wrong direction. So, yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Are you guys okay with starting tonight, but with the knowledge that we're going to allow the room to expand the committee?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. So
voting on this does not limit how we form it. It just allows us to form it and move positively forward.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And does anybody else have any more questions?
I would just encourage anyone tuning in right now that if you are aware of an organization that should be part of this and be at the table for this committee, please email our superintendent with that information.
And Marissa, for some reason, I'm drawing a blank on the Hispanic group. I just cannot get their name. It's not coming into my head.
Are you talking about a MECHA group or the Latino Heritage Group?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right.
All right.
I just couldn't get the name. It's stuck in here. If I may, let me try to make a motion. Okay. I move that the Board of Education, each member submit the name of one community member. There is also the submission of groups in town that have not only a desire, but have been intimately involved in the progress in our community, not limited to Changemaker, the Monrovia Duarte Black Alumni Association, the Black Student Union, the Latino Heritage Group, and other groups as determined, to meet as a committee to look at all the board's policies and procedures to make sure that there are no barriers to advancement for our students.
Sounds good.
I'll second that.
Can you call the barriers? Can you call it equity?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Can you add equity in there? You said
Okay, and
call it
sure.
equity.
I will change the motion to include equity. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm good with that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. And Kathy, you understand what we were trying to achieve here? Okay.
Yes.
And okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Maybe please have a vote.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And up next, we have pending board issues. Dr. Tarosian.
President Hammond, members of the board, this is the first regular meeting of the 2020-2021 school year. For that reason, the pending board issues are now complete. We begin the cycle of including all of the regular reports, and they have all been updated for your review and reference. We have weekly updates included as well as board meeting updates.
Thank you. Let's see. Because we are existing in such a fluid environment, the board is going to be having more meetings than just its normal school board meeting, because we want to make sure that there is full transparency to the public as we proceed with the steps that we take to start the school year on August the 19th in a virtual environment. We will be having special board meetings once a week. Our next scheduled special meeting will be on Thursday, July the 30th at 7 p.m. It will be a meeting that is limited to what has progressed to get us as we make our steps towards being in school so that the community is fully aware of what's happening. I'd also like to draw the attention to the community that the filing deadline for the upcoming November the 3rd election is on Friday, August the 7th. Our regularly scheduled board meeting will be on Wednesday, August the 12th at 7 p.m. virtually. It will also be held on August the 26th virtually. There will also be one on September the 9th. There will be staff in service on Tuesday, August the 18th. Our first day of school will be Wednesday, August the 19th, and the State of the Schools will be on October the 7th. Once again, I'd really like to thank everybody who has been involved in our groups of parents, teachers, administrators, working on these very, very important committees to make sure that we reach our goal of being ready to be in school in a virtual environment. This evening, we will close in memory of
Board President, before we conclude, I wanted to know if I could add something to new business.
Yes, please.
My question would be, I think it would be mostly for Ms. Wu, Connie Wu, and because it's about facilities. And I know that throughout the calendar year, we put some of our facilities projects off until there aren't students and staff on the campus. So I was wondering if for new business in an upcoming board meeting, if you could discuss how we are prioritizing our facilities projects now that we are returning to school, not physically. Is that something that we could add to new business so that we could talk about facilities, the priority, with the understanding that students, at least students, won't be on our campuses? Is that it? Is that an okay ask for an upcoming board meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
President Hammond, I also had something, and it's along the lines of your special board meetings that you're requesting that we have. And in the first special board meeting, I'd like us to be able to canvass teachers to see what other tools are needed. Today we voted on technology as far as Zoom meetings, but what other tools that may be needed. I'd like to have an idea of that so it can be placed on the agenda for the next special meeting, please.
Very good. Dr. Tarosian, you have that?
Yes, so a matter through which survey our team MUSD to determine what additional tools they might need in order to facilitate instruction.
Yes, thank you.
You bet. Anyone else? Okay. Tonight we'll close in memory of former MUSD teacher Gloria Patterson, who passed away on June the 30th, surrounded by her family. Ms. Patterson served as a teacher at both Clifton and Santa Fe for 24 years before her retirement in 2010. Our thoughts and prayers are with her family during this time. And if there's no further business before this body, we will stand adjourned at 8:53. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.